What I tend to see with a lot of golfers is in the downswing, for whatever reason, the elbow will work into this kind of shape. So the elbow will point backwards away from target at the moment of contact or prior to contact. Sometimes this is because the arm will be too close to the body on the way down, and then this is the reaction to make contact. Sometimes it's caused by an out-to-in path and plane, and the elbow is trying to square the club face up. The elbow and hand relationship, that would be more so. So drill number 1, and this comes from Pete Cowan. This is his axe drill. So I've adapted it a little bit to do what I want with this, but the axe drill in theory would do the same kind of things. So what I want you to do to start with is point the club head, the toe of the club head, straight down towards the ground. Take your grip. Now from there, if we wanted to return the club so the toe of the club hit the ball, you'll see here how my elbow changes its shape. So if we just do this again, and if I try and get the elbow to point to the ball without swinging back, you'll see how my elbows change shape. Now my grip is slightly more in a closed position there to do that. So again, when I'm hitting a golf ball, I'd be looking to rotate my arms, rotate my body, and that would get the club face squaring up also. But essentially what I want you to be able to do is feel that we would return the club and hit the ball with the toe end of the club. And that gets us leaning the shaft forward, and it gets my trail elbow tucked in and rotated the right shape. So ideal world, this joint here would point more or less straight towards the camera, as we can see here. Whereas if I did this poorly, you see this points more towards the target. So I want the trail elbow to point in the right place. And we call it kind of like a pitching mode. If I was a pitcher in baseball, you see the elbow gets into this shape and the hand is behind the elbow. So we get this shape then to release the ball down the target. Now what a lot of golfers do is straighten these arms too early in the downswing, and this arm gets very straight. Someone like Dustin Johnson, if you look at him, his right elbow is bent extremely long time. And if you think about punching someone, when we punch someone, not that I want you to go and do this, our arm would be bent, and it would be bent slightly at contact. When the arm is straight, our energy is kind of spent, so we haven't got any energy then to produce the power. And it's the same with the golf swing. If these arms are straight prior to contact, my energy has happened just before that. The most crucial part of the energy, the best part of the energy. So I'd want these arms to be straighter post-impact. That's the only time both arms would be straight. And the trail arm would be slightly bent into contact, but straightening for sure. And what we'd like to see is the trail elbow get to this stick before the trail hand, and with the shaft still having some little element of what we call radial deviation in the wrist. So we have the club kind of set back and set up. That is the ideal world. Now, there's two ways of looking at it. Does the trail elbow push the body to help it get out of the way? So then having the rotation in the body helps to retain the trail elbow position. Or does the body moving allow the trail elbow to work? Well, for me, it's a little bit of chicken and egg. They both help each other, and you could have the focus on one or other to get the right results. What I'd ask you to do is to do some of these drills I'm going to show you in a second. And in producing these drills, if you feel it's more body orientated, that's what you would feel and try and operate. If you feel it's more arm orientated, that's what you would feel and operate. So what we're looking for, we've got this stick in place, but if I had my hand there, I'd be looking for my trail elbow to hit my hand as a kind of drill. So we're punching the trail elbow down to get that. Now, when I do that successfully, this trail shoulder goes into what we would class as external rotation. The shaft shallows without me having to try it. Because if my elbow doesn't get there, you'll see this, the shaft doesn't do what I want it to do. So however I do it, if that elbow gets into that position, the shaft and shoulder change their shape. Now in just doing those one-handed practice swings like that, I can feel my trail shoulder working differently to what it would do normally. And I'm guilty of having the trail shoulder not in as much external rotation as I would want to, and I get the shaft a fraction steep in that transition. And I would like my trail elbow to be a little bit better in this pre-impact position, for sure. Because I'm steep, I'm a little bit flippy through the ball, so getting this trail elbow more organized will be definitely part of my practice plan. I just need to start practicing. So what I've set up here for you is an alignment rod out the ground set just behind the golf ball. If you look at it here, it's probably about one golf ball behind the golf ball. What I want you to do is make practice swings with the garden or the range, and try and get your forearm or elbow, depending on how well we've got this placed, to hit that before the trail hand, and try and keep this shaft close to parallel to the ground. If it's slightly lower, that's fine. If it's slightly higher, that's fine. Obviously, it depends on your ability, in your wrist flexibility and things like that. Now, when I do that, I start to feel my body rotate out the way. I start to feel my pressure shift towards my lead side. I'm not necessarily feeling that my body, I'm feeling that more the trail side pushing. Now, if I go ahead and do it with my body, I get a pretty similar response. I think the trail hand isn't quite as good, but the elbow's pretty good. So when I'm focusing on the elbow and the hand relationship, for me, it probably gives me a better arm shape. Certainly on the golf course, I'd probably wanting to feel it a little bit more in my body because it's a bigger unit to move around, and it's a nicer thought thinking of just committing my body through with rotation and extension. But for a practice point of view, getting my low point later, getting my trail elbow better to allow me to shallow that shaft and use that shoulder correctly and create that kind of late hit and lag and that position we see, you know, all the best players kind of in. If I'm just thinking about my trail elbow to the stick, I'm punching it down, I'm pretty happy with the results I get. So what I would do is have the stick there for practice swings. I might then lower the angle a touch so it's not quite in the way. Try and mirror on top. And then when I go and hit golf balls, I'm going to try and do the same thing. Really happy with that ball flight. More penetrating than normal. Nice divot just after the golf ball. The ball flight had a little bit of cut to it as well. Again, my standard ball flight would be higher than that and more right to left. So for me, as someone that would have a fault of overdrawing the ball or hooking the ball, if you want to call it that, and sometimes I don't get enough divot, that for me felt really, really good. Again, I didn't hit it with full power. And when I go to hit it with full power, I probably wouldn't be as successful at achieving those two things, the ball flight and the divot. So I would build up. The key is to practice at the level where you fail. So if I failed hitting that, say, that went probably about 150 yards. So if I failed at that at 160 yards, I would try and practice hitting it at the power to go 160, which would be about 85–80% for me with this particular club. And if I could do it with full speed, full power, then great. But the idea would be for me, that would be my practice zone for say 20 golf balls. Then I would do some natural shots for about 5 or 10. Now the reason I do 20 doing the drill and 5 or 10 normal is because I want to do more doing it as I want to than what I currently do. Otherwise I'm not going to see much change. It's all about creating the change. So we're doing things to influence change. So more reps doing it the way we want to. And even on the golf course then, doing the practice swing, that might well be like so, and then going ahead and hitting the shot. So I'm giving myself the feels, I'm telling my brain what I wanted to do before I go and try and achieve it. That's really important from a learning point of view. And what we're trying to do is make sure you have no learning errors. If you have a performance error, that's absolutely fine. You can work on those. But if you learn and understand what you should do, the performance error should be about then trust and commitment, and maybe a little bit of reps to get used to it as well. But trust is a big thing too.